And Atlas Shrugged, the book, is kind of her iconic work. And the whole theme of the book is that the the forces of the state and collectivism are encroaching upon individualist and creativity, and the individual's being sacrificed at the altar of the state, and in order to support, perhaps socialist ideals or authoritarian ideals, right? No one can go too fast. No one can can do too much. So the book was pretty incredible because written in 1957, and I read it for the first time in the early 80s. And when I read it, you read it and you say, this is Ayn Rand giving us a warning about what will happen in our country if we go the way of the Soviet Union. You read it as a warning. Don't go to a communist state or a
Mm,
socialist state. And if you're an up and coming American citizen, right, who believes in the system, then you think that's something I have to worry about if I lived somewhere
mm,
else, but not here. And you're not allowed to own the fruits of your labor. And the world is going barreling off of a cliff. Then you say, who is John Galt? Well, she wrote that in 1957. And of course, who is Satoshi Nakamoto? Right, pops up in the Bitcoin world, right? So Satoshi Nakamoto is the person that looked at the system and said, you know, the system is corrupt or it's dysfunctional. If we wanted to make it narrow, we would say Satoshi Nakamoto looks at currencies and banking and says the system is dysfunctional. If you wanted to be a bit more provocative, you say it's just corrupt. And John Galt looked at the system, said it's dysfunctional, and Ayn Rand would have said it's corrupt. And so John Galt's solution is goes off to everybody quits their job, they stop creating things, right? The heroes basically sabotage their own companies, like Francisco Den Kanye sabotages his own company and goes off to Galt's Gulch, and eventually the rest of the creators do the same thing, and that's their protest. The idea being, if we just all withdraw from the economy, then maybe somebody will notice and we can create a better world. So when I went into the speech, my view was, so I crafted the speech with the thought that I wanted to show the similarities between objectivism and the Bitcoin movement. I wanted to point out all the shared antecedents, right? The Austrian economics school of thought, libertarian schools of thought, conservative political ideologies, conservative economic ideologies, engineering and science, and technology ideologies, right? They're all kind of shared themes. And my key point is there's no point being a martyr. You want to be a winner. And ultimately, my frustration with the entire objectivist movement, and I suppose my frustration with all intellectual movements, and there's plenty of them, right? The world's full of a bunch of intellectuals. All of these intellectual movements, they typically write very, very long books. First, I write 1,000-page book, then another 1,000-page book, then another 1,000-page book. Then they have lots of meetings, and then they commiserate with each other, and then they attempt to outdo each other in explaining just how bad the world is and how much better it would be if. And they want to debate, the definition of the term in a book from 70 years ago and whether or not they're right about it or not. And these are all, ridiculous academic debates because no, it's pretty easy to criticize everything. And so the world is full of a lot of people criticizing everything, showing how smart they are by decomposing. Either I'm going to tell you how bad the world is in 99 chapters, or I'm going to tell you, how bad your idea is in 37 different points. but no one's offering a solution. And so in the absence of a solution, you're just generating noise.
Mm.
So that speech is me saying, look, she saw the problem 60 years ago. You need to separate the state from the economy. Satoshi saw the problem, right? When you say separate the money from the state, it's the same thing. You can't have a free economy without a free
Mm.
currency. And if you have a free currency or a currency with integrity, you will get a free economy, right? And you'll get all these things. So they're kind of the same thing. The Austrians have seen it, right? Hayek saw it. Um, you know, Ronald Reagan said, he said, government's not the solution, government's the problem, right? And so the best part of the conservative movement was get the government out of the lives of the people. On the progressive side, I can find lots of progressive politicians that say when you created steel or when you created aluminum and you started to fly, or when you created antibiotics, at that point the world started to get better. And until that point, for 1,000 years, people just argue over what God meant in this particular, verse in the Bible. But winning the argument or losing the argument doesn't change the human condition. Not really. It just, you're the new guy in charge, and there used to be somebody else in charge, and the endless cycle continues. So I put together the speech with that idea. How do we explain to people in the objectivist movement why they should support Bitcoin? And of course, the theme of the book is we're going to go on strike. And the point I make is there's no point going on strike if you didn't think to form the union first. There's no example of anybody that ever went on strike and benefited before they formed the union, right? Going on strike without the union is like holding your breath until your parents give you what you want. Hopefully your parents will notice that you're about to pass out, but if they're not there and you're holding your breath, you're just going to pass out, which is lucky for you, because that's probably the best it's going to be. If you go on strike in the wilderness, then you're just going to die and you're a martyr. And I think that that's the best that can happen when you're an idealist and you don't have a solution before the mobile wave. But after the mobile wave, your friendships became digitized in your relationships on Facebook or your relationships on social media or Snapchat, right? And it started to warp your friendships. And a photo was no longer a product. It was a piece of software, a piece of data. And a communication that was spoken now became digital communication. And once you start to see the digital transformation of things, the digital transformation of friendships, the digital transformation of communication, the digital transformation of video, of audio, of photo, then you start to see digital transformation of politics. And all of these things have a profound impact on the human condition. And